मज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय राधिकायै प्रियात्मने श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त नारायण गोस्वामिनिति नामिने। श्रीकृष्णलीला कथने सुदक्षं औदार्य माधुर्य गुणैशयुक्तं वरं वरेण्यं पुरुषं महान्तं श्रीनारायणं त्वं शिरसा नमामि। त्रिदण्डिनां भक्तशिरोमणिं च श्रीकृष्णपादाब्जधृतये हृदि चैतन्यलीलामृतसारसारं नारायणं त्वं सततं प्रपद्ये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्याय नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। श्याम सुंदर शिखंड शेखर स्मेरहास मुरली मनोहर राधिका रसिक मां कृपा निधे स्वप्रिया चरण किंकरीं कुरु। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। तवैवास्मि तवैवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना इति विज्ञाय राधे तन्नय माम चरनन्तिके। भक्त्या विहीनापराधलक्षै क्षिप्ताश्च कामादितरङ्गमध्यै कृपामयि त्वं शरणं प्रपन्ना वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दम्। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। So, first of all, I offer my unlimited obeisances unto the divine lotus feet of my most worshipable spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktivedant Narayan Goswami Maharaj. My unlimited obeisances unto the divine lotus feet of Sachidanand Thakur Srila Bhaktivinod, to the lotus feet of our Rupanuga Guru Varga, and my humble obeisances unto all the assembled devotees. So, by the mercy of Shri Shri Guru and Goranga, we have been studying Jaiva, a very important scripture, the last book that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote. After writing so many different books, he wrote Jaiva because in this he gave the essence of all the scriptures and so beautifully compiled it in a way that one can progressively understand the entire Gaudiya Siddhanta from the beginning all the way to the highest Siddhanta, the Ras Tattva. So we are on chapter 7, and chapter 7 is called Nitya Dharma and Material Existence. Today is our seventh class on this chapter. So he was discussing about the two types of devotees, those who are householders and those who are renounced, Grihi, Grihastha and Griha Tyagi. So we had some discussion about the Grihasthas, the householders, and in the last where we stopped last time, the Yadav Das ji, he asked a question that nowadays we see that many young people, they leave their home and they go and build a temple. they install deities, and they start collecting some donations. They're also chanting the holy name. But after some time, because of bad association or because of weakness of heart, they start associating with women, but they do not give up chanting. So his question was that such people, would they be considered householders because now they are married, or would they be considered renounced because they actually left the house in the first place? So starting from this question and the next several questions, the discussion is about the renounced order, that when should one consider giving up the family life? What is the eligibility to enter the renounced order? So, very important points Bhaktivinoda Thakur will explain. So, the transition from the householder life to the renounced life or the sannyas ashram. Now, the question may arise that most of us are householders, most devotees are householders, and why do we need to understand about the renunciation? So very few, as he only described and we discussed before, that it is very rare in Kali Yuga, especially, that someone develops that genuine renunciation and is able to give up the householder life. So, what is the importance of having this discussion? So, well, one, for the completeness of the understanding of the ashrams, the to understand completely the two categories of devotees, and very importantly, to understand that the progression from the householder to the sannyas ashram or the renounced order has to be based on genuine sense of renunciation. This is not something that should be done artificially or prematurely. And what is the level of purity? What is the standard of the sannyas ashram? It is important to understand so that we don't get cheated, right? So even if most of people may not enter the sannyas ashram, but understanding it is important, because in nowadays, especially in Kali Yuga, we see that so many people in the garb of being renunciants, they're actually performing all kind of abominable activities. We don't see that much here in America, but in India, you see sadhus all around. We are fortunate that in our Gaudiya parampara, the purity of sannyas ashram has mostly been maintained. But outside of it, there is so much confusion, and to the extent that when people see those who are wearing saffron or those who are supposedly in the renounced order, those who are tyagis, and they performing such abominable acts, they lose faith in dharma. They lose faith in the spiritual path. So therefore, for us to develop that discrimination, for us to understand what is right and what is wrong, we should also understand. So, therefore, this discussion, while we may feel it's not applicable for us because most will not probably renounce householder life, it is still important to understand. So, Anant Das Babaji said that you have raised many questions in this particular question about that how some young people they give up householder life and then they open a temple and then sometimes they get married. So the first thing he explained was that renunciation has nothing to do with one's age. One can be renounced at a very young age also, because this is all based on your purva sanskar, your impressions from the previous lives, and also the association in this life. So one may have reached a very high level of spiritual development in the past life, for some reason was not able to reach complete perfection. So in this age, in this life, he may start from a very high standard. I remember when I was young, we went, this is back in mid 70s, I think, or late 70s. We went to Haridwar. So it's a holy place in India. And now, of course, when you go there, it's very crowded, but that time, a very, very peaceful place. And close to Haridwar, there's a place called Rishikesh. And that time there were just a few ashrams there. And the ashram that we were staying, there was a very aged sannyasi who was the head of that ashram, and every day he would do katha. Of course, I was very young, won't understand much. So while we were staying there, a young boy came, and he was probably not even 9 or 10 years old. And he was he was, I think, even younger than that age, fluently chanting Bhagavad Gita. He knew all the 700 verses. And I still remember there was such an aura on his face, and so effulgent that most of the people were not very much, when he spoke, it was amazing that he spoke so much more deeply and with so much siddhanta compared to even this elderly sannyasi who was there. And even that elderly sannyasi would sit with great respect and listen to this young boy. So, of course, I myself was very young, so didn't really understand much, but I still remember the aura on his face. So, the point is that one can be very young and still be renounced and be very elevated. So, he said that's, of course, not the criteria of whether one can leave the householder life and become renounced. Just like Shukdev Goswami, the moment he came out of the womb of his mother Bitika Devi, he left for the forest. So, right at the age of, at the birth, he was completely renounced. So, of course, he was not an ordinary person. He is Shuka, he's a parrot of Srimati Radhika. So, he was very special. Now, the point he makes here is more important than the age. The thing to understand is that the eligibility should not be artificial, that renunciation should not be artificial. If real detachment awakens, then youth is not an impediment. Just as I was saying last time, our own Gurudev, Param Pujyapal Shri Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, he was quite young. He was only 25 or 26 years old when he left his family and never looked back. So that means that the detachment was real. And that is the next question that he asks. He says, what is real renunciation and what is false renunciation? So Anandas Babaji gives a very good definition. How do we know that someone's renunciation is real or false? And this applies to us also, right? Many times we get this sense of renunciation. So let's first read and we'll understand it more. So Anandas Babaji says, real renunciation is so firm that it can never be broken at any time. So just like the flow of water, right? If it is flowing in the river, it is constant. Or like Gurudev will say, Tail Dharavat. If when you start pouring some oil from a container, it is continuously flowing. So when the renunciation is continuous, it is so firm that no matter what may happen, whatever the intensity of sense objects or sense enjoyment will be presented, or whatever type of situations which may be unfavorable may come in the life of such a person, he is so fixed in his devotion, in his detachment, that he never gets distracted, he never gets carried away. Now, compared to what many of us at times feel the sense of renunciation, right? We go to the temple and listen to Hari Katha and very beautiful, sweet Kirtan, and we feel so renounced. Oh, I also want to give up. I also want to become like this and get this sense of renunciation. But then you leave and you go out and then you see a big, big billboard, or you listen something, or there's a new movie that's got released. Oh, I want to go and see this movie now, right? Why? Because right now this is anishtita. It is unsteady, just like there is steadiness in bhakti and unsteadiness. So in the unsteady stage, the desire will come to renounce. The desire will come. Sometimes we will be so fixed, but then that mood of steadiness goes away also very quickly. So similarly, when renunciation is steady, meaning it will never, under no circumstance, will be broken, he says that is real renunciation. So again, remember the example I gave last time also, that when a leaf completely becomes dry, then it falls off the tree automatically, right? So that is real renunciation. But he says, what is false renunciation? And this is the point that is important to understand, because unfortunately, because of the effect of Kali, we see this very rampant all around. And again, especially in India, if you see generally in the so-called religious circles, not necessarily within our Gaudiya parampara, again, as I said before, fortunately, the purity has been maintained to a large extent. But when you see outside, you see this false renunciation. He says, what does false renunciation arise from? From deception, dishonesty, and desire for prestige. So, dishonesty means that even though one is not renounced, one does not have a true renunciation, but for some ulterior purposes, he gives up the household life and fakes renunciation. He says some people make a false show of renunciation to gain the respect that is offered to nirpeksh bhaktas who have given up household life. But such false detachment is futile and completely inauspicious. So again, especially in India and in generally, one has natural respect for saintly people. Someone who's especially wearing saffron or who is renounced, one has a sense of respect for them, and you will come and also give them something in donation. So there are people who, simply because this is such an easy way of making money, they will fake being a saintly person. And this is in different religions, not necessarily just in Hinduism. In others, I was hearing someone from Islam, and he was saying that how in India, especially again, when you go, there are people who will just build a mazar or build a temple of some demigod, even sometimes on the roadside. And many times these are not true places. There's not real any fakir who has passed away, but they will just put some bricks together, build a mazar, put some cloth on it. Similarly, they will put some stone and they say, oh, this demigod has manifested here. Nowadays, especially more in the rural areas, and most people are just so innocent that get carried away. They'll start coming and putting donation. And now this person is very easily having a comfortable life because without making any real effort or working, he is able to make money. So it says this kind of false renunciation is very inauspicious, because what are you going to ultimately get? Nothing. In fact, you are going to fall to the worst hellish planets. Shri Gurudev will say that someone who steals the money of donation, because when someone gives donation, that is being given with great faith that this will be used in the service of the Lord, in the service of the Vaishnavas. So if someone steals that money and uses for his own sense gratification, Shri Gurudev says a hell has, even the worst hell is not enough for such a imposter. So one should be very careful about this. And that's what he is also cautioning here, that this is very, very inauspicious, because as soon as such a person leaves home, the symptoms of his eligibility for detachment disappear and depravity sets in. So now, because the desire is there, right? The actual renunciation did not develop, the taste for bhakti has not developed. So when they leave home, and at as soon as the money starts coming or followers start coming, they become distracted. Chale the Hari Bhajan ko utan lage kapas. And now they build another sansar of themselves, another world for themselves, which they built on the pretext of serving the Lord, but their Lord is not the center. Now everything is for their own enjoyment. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Karmendriyani sanyamya ya aste manasa smaran indriyarthan vimudhatma mithyachari sa uchyate. that one who externally controls his senses, karmendriyas, working senses, but internally is always thinking about sense enjoyment, such a person, mithyachari saha uchyate, such a person is fake, he's an imposter. And one should be very, very careful. Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he would say that there are many, many cheaters in the world. Why? Because people want to be cheated. Because we also don't want genuine bhakti. We don't want genuine spiritual knowledge. Therefore, there are so many cheaters who, in the garb of being saintly people, they give us very incorrect knowledge. In fact, it's not even knowledge, can't be even called knowledge. And following such people, because they are going down the wrong path, and those who follow them will also go down the wrong path. See, human life is so precious. We get this life after millions of lifetimes. So, just like Shri Gurudev would say, that when we go and nowadays, of course, we don't see here, but the trend has again started earthen pot. When we were growing up, there would be in the summer earthen pots, and if you put water in there, it stays very cool. And now, even nowadays, there is again a trend to start keeping earthen pots because the water in these earthen pots is much healthier than drinking refrigerated water. So, anyways, Gurudev will say when we would go and purchase an earthen pot, you would with your finger knock it and see what sound it is making, than than or khan khan. So if it is making the sound of khan khan, that means some water is dripping down. But if there is no hole in it, it will make a different sound. So he says when selecting an earthen pot, we are so careful. When going to a doctor, we are so careful. We look at the credentials because if you go to a wrong doctor, then you will not be able to get treated. And if he gives you wrong medicine, then in Hindi it says, Neem Hakim Khatre Jaan. Such kind of doctors who are just sitting under a tree, they don't have real credentials. By going to them, you're putting your life in danger. So, similarly, when we approach a saintly person, when we approach those who are in the dress of sannyasis and seek spiritual knowledge from them, we should also use some discrimination. And that's why understanding all of this is important. So then Yadav Das ji says that does a bhakta who has given up householder life need to adopt the external dress of renunciation? So now in this and the next question, the point that Anant Das Babaji tries to explain is that the dress is not the important part of renunciation, but at the same time, wearing the dress of a renunciant, like those who are sannyasis, they wear saffron. In those days, as I was explaining before, most will only wear a white dress in respect to Mahaprabhu taking the saffron color. Most others who did enter the order of renunciation, like the six Goswamis, they still wore the white dress, just kopeen and some loincloth. So, but the important part is the renunciation from the heart. The external dress that one wears does not necessarily indicate whether you are renounced from the heart or not. That is only reflected in one's behavior and how one conducts oneself. So he says that one who has firmly renounced the spirit of enjoyment, they purify the entire world, irrespective of whether they are wearing the dress of a renunciant or not. But some of them accept a loincloth. Some of them will accept these external signs to identify themselves as the members of the renounced order. And when they accept the renounced order in the presence of other renunciants, other Vaishnavas, they will accept this renounced order. And this is called entrance into the sannyas ashram or the renounced order. And he says this is called Vesh Grahan, and there is no harm in it. So there is no harm again because at that time this was not that formalized. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, for the purpose of preaching worldwide, he made it more of a formal system. But even the understanding is, and this applies to all aspect of bhakti, that the external is not as important as the internal. External is also important, but if all the emphasis is given only to that, but there is no understanding of that how one should internally purify oneself, internally become detached from material enjoyment, then the external thing is of no use, because Krishna is not impressed by what dress you are wearing. He's only controlled by the mood of our heart. Right? See, with our external dress, we might be able to fake it and cheat everyone else. We fool everyone else. But we can't fool the Supreme Lord because He's sitting right in our heart. So, therefore, yes, dress has its importance, but what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is explaining, the more important part is the renunciation from the heart. So then he says, then what is the purpose? When it is not that critical, then what is the purpose of being identified by the signs of the renounced order? So we as Vaishnavas also wear different, tilak, kanthi and those who are sannyasis, they wear saffron clothes. So he says, what is the purpose of being identified by these signs of the renounced order? So Anant Das Babaji explains it is very helpful. And he gives three main reasons. He says, first thing is that a renunciant's family members will no longer maintain a relationship with him, because there is this etiquette. Someone who has accepted the renounced order, he does not live at home. So they, of course, also will follow that etiquette and will not maintain a relationship with him. And secondly, he himself will not have a desire to enter the house, because again, that's part of the etiquette. And also, there will be some fear of the society, right? That if I'm in the dress of a sannyasi and then going to the house and staying at home, what will the society say? So, all of these things are beneficial if one wears the dress of a renunciate. So he says it is beneficial for some devotees to accept the outward signs, though this may not necessarily be necessary if detachment from household life is fully matured. He quotes from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is from the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 29, where Narad Rishi ji is speaking to King Prachin Barahi. So there he says, Sa jahati matim loke vedecha parinishtitam. That a devotee who has received the mercy of Bhagwan gives up attachment for all worldly activities and for all ritualistic duties prescribed in the Vedas. So this is a symptom of a real devotee, that he does not have any attachment for any ritualistic activities, any worldly activities, because he does not derive any pleasure from anything that is not connected to Krishna. And as you see in our Vaishnav parampara, there is no emphasis on any kind of ritualistic activities. Many other places where we go, they will perform yajnas, elaborate pujas, so many different type of rituals. But in Vaishnav parampara, the importance is given to Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. So hearing Hari Katha is very, very important. Hearing about the pastimes, about the glories of the holy name, about the qualities of the Lord, Nam, Roop, Guna, Leela. So hearing, chanting the holy name, speaking Hari Katha, and remembering. So these have more importance than any other ritualistic activity. So a devotee has no interest in any kind of worldly or ritualistic activities. So he says there is no injunction for such devotees who are completely renounced, completely absorbed in Hari Bhajan to accept the outward dress of renunciation. It is necessarily only as long as there is some dependence on public consideration. And again, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, the great Acharya who established Gaudiya Math, for the purpose of systematically propagating the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all over the world, he established the sannyas order and the particular dress to be worn and the rules and regulations to be followed by the sannyasis. So, but that still does not mean that only sannyasis have to be renounced, right? So, in any ashram we are, the goal is that from our heart we should try to detach ourselves from the materialistic activities. And how does that come? In the process of bhakti, that comes naturally. It is not an artificial renunciation. Because the more we become attached to Harikatha, the more we are attached to the sweetness of the holy name, then very naturally, Shraddha Rati Bhakti Anukramishati. From Shraddha, Rati will come and Prem will develop. So there is no artificial control of one's senses. The only thing one has to do is associate with good devotees and apply oneself sincerely and honestly to the path of bhakti. And in this whole thing, that Bhaktivinoda Thakur in this discussion towards the end of this chapter regarding the entrance into the renounced order, the main point he's talking about is being honest. Know where you are and accordingly make the decision to give up the household life or not. So that's the next question. He says, from whom should one accept the renounced order? So now, okay, what is the eligibility and from whom one should accept the renounced order? He says one should accept the renounced order from another renunciant. One should not accept the renounced order from the grihastha. So remember, previously he did say that even though who is a grihastha, a householder, can also be a guru. Right? There is no such restriction. Kiba vipra kibanyase shudra kene hoy, ye Krishna tattvaveta sai guru hoy. As long as one is completely surrendered, one understands the Siddhanta, Krishna tattvaveta, one understands it by essence, and he is following all the regulative principles. One can also act as a shiksha and diksha guru, even as being a householder. And there's so many examples. So many of Mahaprabhu's associates were all householders. Even in the modern time, there are many householders in that role. But he says a householder should not give the renounced order. He should not give someone vanprasth or sannyas. Why? Because he himself is not in that order. So, in Brahm Vaivarta, there is a statement, apariksha upadishtam yat lok nashai tat bhavet. One brings ruination to the world if he instructs others in religious principles that he himself does not follow. So the point is, apani achari. First, we have to follow what we preach. And most of our preaching is done by our acharan. So yes, if someone can speak very well, he can certainly inspire. That's not, that's certainly a role to play. But the truth is, one inspires more by one's behavior, that how one conducts oneself. If I'm only preaching but not following what I'm preaching, then sooner or later it will become evident, right? That potency will not be there. So Acharya is one who does acharan. He actually follows what he preaches. So we have one very sweet or very senior disciple of Shri Pujapad Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj and Shri Gurudev. His name is Premanand Prabhu. Many of you probably know him, and he lives in Vrindavan. And such a senior, exalted personality. But every single day, he himself goes to the kitchen and cooks for everyone. So from the beginning, Gurudev gave him seva. He was in charge of Mathura Math. Now he lives in Vrindavan. So it's not that he's only preaching that we should serve the Vaishnavas, but he himself every single day spending so much time and so carefully taking care of all the devotees who come, spending time with them, making sure that they're comfortable, cooking for them. So this is acharan, right? So we, by our own example, we show. So he's saying that if if a Grihastha Bhakta himself is not renounced, he cannot give the order of renunciation to someone else. So then he asks a very important question, very, very important question. Yadadas asks, he says, what criteria should a guru use to offer initiation into the renounced order? And how should we decide? So Anandas ji says, there are again three very important points to understand. And even though this question is about the renounced order, this also applies to when one takes initiation, because there are some considerations that time as well. So he says, first, one should see that if the Krishna bhakti of the Grihast Bhakta has imbued him with a spiritual temperament and with qualities such as full control of mind and senses. So when one is going from the Grihast ashram to Sannyas ashram, he says he should see, the guru should assess, has that devotee developed that spiritual temperament, that mood, by following sincerely the principles of bhakti in the householder life. As we were discussing last time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that householder life is like a school, a pathshala, that one learns so many important things in householder life. One learns how to become humble, tolerant, how to respect the Vaishnavas, applies himself to the study of the scripture. So many things one learns, and then develops in a controlled fashion by enjoying the different comforts. He slowly develops detachment from all of them. So it says, through this process, has he actually learned control of mind and senses? Because if the mind is not controlled, if the senses are not controlled, then they will give a lot of problem. That's why Sri Rupa Goswami, the very first verse of Upadeshamrit, he says, Vacho vegam manasah krodh vegam, jiva vegam udar upastha vegam. Vacho vegam. The urge to speak, right? That's the first thing. That's one of the senses that gives a lot of problem. How do we communicate? How do we speak? Very important for a devotee. Vacho vegam manasaha, controlling the mind, controlling the anger, controlling the tongue, because it wants to taste so many different things. Then the belly and the genitals. So all of these, the control has to be there. And the Grihast ashram is to learn to develop control on all these urges. The second thing is, has the hankering for wealth and satisfaction of the tongue been uprooted or not? So, very important. He should not, as is cautioned before, should not be entering the order of renunciation because of the desire to accumulate wealth. Why? Because when I'm renounced, people will come and offer donations to me. Right? So that desire should not be there. Gurudev would say that a sannyasi should not have a pocket. In his kurta that he's wearing, there should not be pocket. Meaning he should not keep anything for himself. In the traditional sannyas ashram, in the Vedic time, the mendicant or the sannyasi will go to a house for begging alms and will say, Bhiksham dehi, Bhiksham dehi, Bhiksham dehi. Please give me alms, please give me alms, or some donation. Say it 3 times. And sometimes it says just enough while you are milking a cow, just for that much time. Means very short time he will stay at a house, outside the house, asking for, begging for alms. And if he gets something, he will take it, otherwise go to the second house. And if he gets enough, as soon as he gets enough to cook and have a meal, he will not go and ask for anything else. So the point was that he should not accumulate. So he says that desire for wealth, and wealth does not just mean money. Wealth means having clothes, having all kind of amenities, having buildings, temples, all kind of these things is wealth. So one should not be attached to it. Now one may need to do it for the purpose of preaching, but all of it should be used for the service of Krishna, not for one's personal sense enjoyment. And then third thing he says, so first is he's whether he has developed control of mind and senses going through the householder life. Second, whether the desire for accumulating wealth has gone. And the third thing is the guru should keep the disciple with him for some time in order to examine him thoroughly. And he may initiate him into the renounced order when he finds that he is a suitable candidate. So a very important thing. In Hari Bhakti Vilas also it says, and that is even explained, Raghunath Gopal Bhatt Goswami is explaining that even when one goes for initiation, this is of course discussion related to the renounced order, even when accepting Diksha, he recommends that one should at least wait for 1 year. Both guru and disciple should assess each other for 1 year, because if the guru gives to someone who's ineligible very quickly, then that person will not be steady, will go very quickly. And similarly, if the disciple accepts a guru and has not developed sufficient faith in him and just out of some initial emotion accepts the guru, and then he will start finding faults and will also become offensive. So one should take one's time and carefully take this decision. So here specifically when it comes to renounced order, he's saying that one should keep that candidate with himself for some time and then assess if he's not suitable for the renounced order. Very important, he says, if the guru offers initiation to a person who is unqualified, he will certainly fall down himself. So both the person who's unqualified will also not be able to maintain, and the Guru himself, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, and this is the injunction of the scriptures also. Therefore, even in Hari Bhakti Vilas, in all our scriptures, it is said that a guru should not just indiscriminately go and accept disciples, because first of all, he would have to accept the karma, and he himself, if it's not an Uttam Mahabhagavat, then it will be impact. Someone who's an Uttam Mahabhagavat, different category. He is not impacted by the karma of his disciples, but someone who's not at that level is going to get impacted. So one should be careful. And also, the person who's taking initiation will not be able to be steady. And again, nowadays, we see this quite rampant. And that's where, as I was saying before, the dilution of the spiritual principle starts taking place. See, if you remember, all of you probably remember your geometry, right? So in geometry, there is an angle. So when you have a straight line and then you have another line at an angle, that in the beginning, even if the angle is only, let's say, 1 degree angle, 2 degree angle. So at the start, it seems very, very, though both the lines are very close. But as you keep making the line very long, which is the slanting line at an angle, if you keep drawing it, after some time, the distance between the straight line and that slanted line will become quite a bit. So the point is that even minor deviations in the beginning may seem, oh, it's okay. But over a period of time, this deviation starts diluting the purity and the integrity of the system that our acharyas have laid out, and not following it strictly then starts compromising. If you start compromising it for one reason or the other, that's where the spiritual principles they get compromised, and the corruption, the practices started becoming corrupt. So again, this happens. It is Kali Yuga, and the forces of time are such that Gurudev will say, however we may try, but Kal or time is also going to act. But again, we should, if we understand the Siddhanta, then we can keep that discrimination and maintain the purity. And as disciples, that is the most important thing we have to do, that we maintain the integrity and the purity of what we have received from our Guru Varga, not change it even a bit, not even an iota. It can be presented in different ways, because according to time, place, and circumstances, whom you're preaching, you may have to make it simpler, you may have to present it in different ways, sometimes using science, sometimes using some cultural concepts. That's perfectly fine. Presentation can be different, but the principles should never be compromised. So here is saying that one should be very careful, therefore, when giving sannyas to someone. So then Yadav Dasji says, "Oh, now I see that this is no light matter. It is not a joke to accept the renounced order. It is a serious undertaking. Unqualified gurus are turning this practice into a common affair. It has only just begun, and there is no telling where it will end." So, again, this is a time when, as I was giving the example of that line at an angle, right? So he said this kind of practice has just begun, but over 100, 200, 300 years, it became so bad. So that's why when Bhaktivinoda Thakur came, in the Vaishnav society, the Gaudiya society, too much corruption was there. The Babaji Vesh was being taken by unqualified people, and then they were committing all kind of abominable activities. So people will look down upon the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, then he re-established the pure principles, and then Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave it a very formal structure and ensured that we would follow these principles very strictly. So then Anantas Babaji says that yes, that's true, that there is, unqualified gurus are turning this into a common affair. But those who are in the Gaudiya Parampara, those who are following Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they should always remember that how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu severely punished Chota Haridas for a completely insignificant fault. Why? Just to protect the sanctity of the renounced order. The followers of our Lord should always remember the punishment to Chota Haridas. So the Lord Himself establishes the standards. So again, our scriptures, our acharyas give us the standard, and that standard should not be compromised, right? We may not be eligible to get to that level. We may not be at that level. We are not at that level. We should aspire for it. But that does not mean that we should lower the bar. The bar should never be lowered, right? Because to go back to Krishna lok, why are we doing all of this? That's the point. That's a prime question. Why are we doing all of this? Not to make followers. We are not doing that to get famous. That's not the goal. The goal is that we should become free from the cycle of birth and death. And more important, that will happen. The real goal is develop pure love for Krishna. And that pure love will not develop if there is dishonesty, duplicity, and the desire for things other than Krishna Prem. So therefore, Mahaprabhu himself, he set such a high standard. You know the story of Chota Haridas. He was an associate of Mahaprabhu, a very beautiful singer. Mahaprabhu will be so enchanted by hearing the sweet melodious sound of Haridas Thakur, of Chota Haridas. One time, a devotee, his name was Bhagavata, and Mahaprabhu was going to come to honor Prasadam at his place during the lunchtime. And Bhagavata wanted to cook a very special kind of rice, and he did not have it at his home. So he sent Chota Haridas to Madhvi Devi's house. Madhvi Devi was the youngest sister of Shikhi Mahiti, also a very special devotee. And Madhvi Devi was an elderly woman. Chota Haridas went to her house to beg some rice, to get some rice. And the rice was cooked. Mahaprabhu came, and when he was honoring the prasadam, he said, "Oh, this rice is so wonderful. Who made it, and where did you bring this rice from?" And that time Bhagavatacharya said, "Oh, Chota Haridas went to Madhvi's place to get this rice." So when he heard this, Mahaprabhu became very angry, and he said, "I don't want to see the face of Haridas again. Ever. Take him away." So everyone was so surprised. What did he do wrong? He says he is in the renounced order, and he still has a desire to associate with women. He could have gone someplace else to get the rice. Why did he go especially to Madhvi's house to get the rice because he has a desire to see a woman. Now, we may not be able to comprehend it, right? But Mahaprabhu is setting a standard again that we should not make these things very cheap. So he did not accept Chota Haridas, even though everyone begged him that please forgive him, and he was so repentant. He was crying and crying. But Mahaprabhu said, if you force me to accept him, I will leave Puri and go to Alalnath. So then finally, Chota Haridas went away, and then he actually jumped into Prayag. He there and he left his body. And then again, of course, he in his spiritual form, because he's an eternal associate of the Lord, he would come and sing melodious kirtan to Mahaprabhu. So the point again is that one should be very careful. Now, of course, our acharyas are so merciful, so much more. Mahaprabhu is magnanimous, but his devotees are super magnanimous. And we have seen in the examples of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada and Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Bhakti Dait Madhav Goswami Maharaj, our Gurudev Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj, all of them, that their cases happened when they gave sannyas to someone, the person left, or a brahmachari left and became a householder, but they still accepted them. They still forgave them and accepted them, because Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada will say, one spends 400 gallons of blood to make someone a devotee, meaning it is not easy to bring someone to the fold of Krishna consciousness. So they are so magnanimous that even if someone fell down, they would not reject. They will still embrace. Okay, come back. If because your heart was weak, you entered the householder life, no problem. But now staying as a householder, try to maintain your principles of Krishna consciousness and continue this path. Don't give up bhakti. So this is how magnanimous are. So even though Mahaprabhu is showing such strictness, but his own followers are so magnanimous. But at the same time, we should again remember that we cannot use this as an excuse. Again, point is that entering the house, the renounced order, one should be very careful. And then he says, another important question Yadav Das ji asks. He says, is it proper to construct a monastery and establish the worship of a deity after one has entered the renounced order? And he says, no. A qualified disciple who has entered the renounced order should maintain his existence by begging every day. He should not involve himself in constructing a monastery or in other grand enterprises. So he says, one who has entered the renounced order should remain aloof from all affairs that require money, and he should constantly chant Sri Harinam without offense. So again, this is the standard. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, very empowered acharya, he engaged his sannyas disciples in collecting money, in building big temples and preaching all over the world. But the principle was still the same, that even though they were collecting money, they were not keeping not even an cent for themselves. Whatever they will collect, they will offer at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. And that should be the etiquette, that those who are residing in the mutt, in the ashram, they go and collect donations, but they should give everything to the guru or whoever is guru's representative as the head of the ashram. Now, the head of the ashram or the guru also should not use that money. Oh, now all of them are going, I have 100 disciples, they're going all over collecting money, I can live very nicely. No. He also does not use the money for himself. He uses that money for the service of Thakurji, for preaching and taking care of all these residents. So Prabhupada, they will bring the money to him and he will make sure that everyone is taken care of, whatever they needed for themselves, for their preaching activities, for their clothes, for prasadam, if someone fell sick, for taking care of them. They will take so much love and affection for his disciples, so much love. Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, when Bhaktivedanta Vaman Maharaj, he was in charge of the printing press, And when he was doing so dedicated, this was before he took sannyas, he cut his finger. And Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj immediately left everything, picked him up, and took him to the hospital. And he was crying, for his disciple. So this is the love of Guru and Shishya. The Shishya completely offers everything to the Guru, a genuine Shishya, a Sat Shishya, and similarly a Sat Guru has so much affection for his disciples that he takes care of them in every way. So he says, but one should not just, make temples, especially sannyasis, and collect money because there is possibility. The more, if they accumulate money, then possibility of falling down. And now again, there is a trend nowadays, trend to big opulent temples. Yes, our acharyas have instructed us to build temples, but there should also be some control. There has to be some consideration because if we spend millions of dollars building grand temples, then it is the nature of money that it will cause conflicts, it will cause fall down, it will cause problems, and all the energy will be spent in these buildings. Actually, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, he also lamented towards the end. He said, I have built big temples, and now my disciples are fighting over who is going to get which room. These are beautiful temples. So he said, if I would be, I would sell every brick and use that money for publishing books. So the point is, temples are also required, but they should not become just places where exhibition places where one comes spend millions of dollars are spent to build these grand buildings just to attract people and make it a big business enterprise. That's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is cautioning against. But temples themselves have a great purpose to serve, for the purpose of preaching, for engaging the devotees in service. So they have a great purpose, and there's a great need for temples. So we'll do a couple more questions and then conclude today's class. So then he says, what do you call renunciants who set up a monastery and then live like households? So, especially the ones who have left home, now built monasteries, and now again they are becoming like householders. And nowadays it is happening. So traditionally, during the time of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, and what we have also seen in my early age in ashrams, it is only the renunciants would live. And now there are more and more householders, and many temples are actually paying salaries to the householders to get things done. So it's becoming more of like a business enterprise. So Anand Das Babaji says, they may be called Vantasi, those who eat their own vomit, because we leave householder life to become renounced. And again, if you get entangled in money and all of this, then it's not good. Gurudev will sometimes say that nowadays sadhus have so much luxury and benefits available to them that even a householder does not have. So, see, this is all, in fact, a reflection of our original offense towards Sri Krishna. The original offense is that we want to enjoy independent of him, right? And that reflects all the way through sometimes in the renounced order also, if one has renounced without being actually eligible. Because if that desire to enjoy is there, desire to have luxuries, desire to have followers for the sake of becoming a famous guru, all of that is a reflection of that original offense of being a controller like Sri Krishna. So therefore, if one is genuinely wanting to develop Krishna Prem, then he will have no such desires. And therefore, if you read Shikshashtakam, Mahaprabhu himself, he says in Shikshashtakam, Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadish kamaye, mam janmani janmanishware bhavtat bhaktir ahetuki tvai. How will ahetuki bhakti develop? He says, Na dhanam, no desire for wealth, na janam, no desire for followers or any associates, na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, that people should glorify me, I should have a lot of people eulogizing me and offering worship to me. ना धनम ना जनम ना सुंदरीम कविताम वा जगदीश कामय मम जन्मनि जन्मनीश्वरे भक्तात भक्तिर अहेतुकी। The all I desire is your ahetuki bhakti. So as long as there is some hetu means desire or reason, any reason other than uh, rendering loving devotional service to Krishna, then we will not achieve our desired goal. So then Yadav Das says that such people are they not to be considered Vaishnavas? Anand Das Babaji says, what benefit is there in the association of such people when their behavior is contrary to the scriptures and Vaishnav Dharma? Mahaprabhu lived such a simple life. Mahaprabhu, who's Krishna himself, right? He was living, if you go to Jagannath Puri, he was living in Gambhira, a small room. And such strict standards of sannyas, and even Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, all of them, such strict standards of being sannyasi. So he says if such people fall into enjoying and committing abominable acts, then their behavior is completely contrary to Vaishnav Dharma. They have given up pure bhakti and have adopted a hypocritical lifestyle. What relationship could a Vaishnav have with such people? So you will not get pure bhakti by associating with such people. Then Yadav Das ji says, how can one say that they have given up Vaishnavism as long as they don't give up chanting of the holy name? So they may still be chanting, right? They may still be chanting, but they're also wearing saffron, but they're also living in great luxury, have big bank accounts, all of that. So, but they're still chanting, so are they not to be considered Vaishnavas? So now Anand Das Babaji says, very important point. He says, Harinam and Nam Aparadh are two different things. Chanting the holy name and chanting with offenses, this is not the same thing. Pure Harinam is quite distinct from offensive chanting that only has the external appearance of Harinam. It is an offense to commit sins on the strength of chanting Srinam. So there are 10 offenses against the holy name. And the seventh offense is Namno Balat Yasya hi Pap Buddhi. Namno Balat. So on the strength of the holy name, Yasya Pap Buddhi. If someone has this buddhi, this kind of thinking, oh, I am chanting and I can commit wrong things, but still by chanting of the holy name, I will become purified, then this is a grave offense and this is Namaprad. If one chants Sri Harinam at the same time commits sinful activities, thinking that the power of Sri Nam will exempt him from sinful reactions he's committing, Namaprad, this is not Shuddh Nam, and one should flee far away from such offensive chanting. So Yadav Das ji says, then is the domestic life of such people not to be considered Krishna centered? Anand Das Babaji says, never. There is no room for hypocrisy in a Krishna centered domestic life. Very important thing. And this is, we should always remember. Duplicity, hypocrisy has no place in Krishna consciousness. If one genuinely wants to become, one genuinely wants to attain Krishna Prem, that we have to become free from hypocrisy. So, see, calm, lust, anger, uh, greed, all of these can be controlled. All of this, if one is sincerely following, with a simple heart, you will be able to overcome all of this. But if one is duplicitous mean internally something else and faking to be something else outside. This duplicity, you can't figure it out, right? If someone is angry, has anger issues, you can figure out easily. If someone is a sense enjoyer, even though he may be wearing a tilak, you can see this devotee has some desire for enjoyment. But if someone is very good at faking, is duplicitous, it's very difficult to figure out. And again, this hypocrisy again manifests from that offense, that mood that the jiva has, because of which he's bound in the material world, of being averse to Shri Krishna. There can only be complete honesty and simplicity with no trace of offense. So he says, is such a person inferior to Grihastha Bhakta? He says he's not even a devotee. Anandas Babaji says he's not even a devotee, so there is no question of comparing with any Bhakta. So then the question comes, does such a person have hope? Someone who's fallen down, does he have a hope? Yes, he also has hope. We will discuss that next time, because ultimately Krishna is full of compassion. Krishna is not there to punish us and have us suffer in the hell. No, that's not what the Lord wants. He wants everyone to come to him. He is the most magnanimous, he is the most merciful, but he does want us to rectify ourselves. So if someone has fallen down, but that does not mean that there is no recourse for him, and he will discuss that next. We will discuss that next time, because Yadav Das ji asks, how may such a person be rectified? And a very important thing to understand. So next time we will discuss that and also conclude this chapter 7 next time. So I'll stop here and let's see if anyone has any questions. Any question related to what we discussed today or what we have been discussing in this chapter so far? Okay, so if there's no questions, Angel Prabhu, any question? I think you may be on mute. Okay, so yes, any
Hare
question?
Krishna.
Haribol.
Um, I wanted to ask, sorry, I'm feeling ill, so I was just laying down and listening. Thank you for this, a very nice class. Uh, so we're talking about duplicities and engaging in service, and you mentioned Varna Prast. A lot of us are coming from karmic backgrounds and, working and things like that and saving, but we're also trying to cultivate a mood of service. So is it important to start thinking about that? Like, okay, I have to minimize my desire and my reliance to work and, to associate with people outside of the temple, and maybe try to you know, to focus more of my time instead of coming home and I watch television or read books or something like this, of course, but to decide, okay, I'm going to make a point to come to this temple, instead of 1 or 2 days a week, maybe 3 or 4 days a week, so that we can actually give ourselves to the Lord when we come to that point of our life.
Yes, absolutely. See, that should always be the goal, right? To continuously try and increase our engagement with the devotees. More Shravan, more Kirtan, more Nam Smaran. So that is the goal, so that we can come to the point where 24 by 7 we can be engaged, right? So, of course, one should try to do this naturally, but naturally means also consciously, right? Because we should have a genuine desire to have so much affection and so much taste for the holy name and for Hari Katha, and apply ourselves to service, to listening Hari Katha. And Gurudev would always say Hari Katha is the most important, right? We should never miss an opportunity, especially some senior devotees speaking, associating with them. And that's how we make real progress in spiritual life. If we just make it like Srila Prabhupada will say, right, church, just go on the Sunday for the one time. Now, of course, because of the lifestyle we have and the way the modern society is, now going to the temple sometimes may not be possible, but if possible, we should go. But if not possible, we should continue doing all the same activities at home, and hearing, chanting, reading, offering bhoga, right? So spend more and more time in spiritual activities and try and minimize, of course, whatever you need to do to make your living, that is important. We have been discussing that. But outside of that, should minimize our time with those whose association is not favorable for bhakti. And Rupa Goswami explains this in Upadeshamrit what is favorable and what is not favorable for bhakti. So whatever is needed for work, right? So when you have to work, you have to sometimes associate with such people, that's fine, right? But don't get too engrossed with them, too entangled with them.
So even like some activities, say we're watching movies or things like this, we can supplement those with devotional activities, and that'll bring us closer to wanting to serve more sincerely or more
Yeah.
frequently.
Yes, see that should be the goal, right? See, if we don't consciously give up the habits that are keeping us stuck in the material consciousness, then it's almost like Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev will give this example. So there was this wedding party which was had to go to the another village and they were going to go by a big boat. So they all boarded this boat late evening. It was getting dark, and all night, the boat was being rowed, and they were all, talking, and then they all went to sleep. But when they got up in the morning, they saw they were still all in the same place. Why? Because the boatman forgot to lift the anchor. So the boat was still stuck to the ground. So the point is, if we are not genuinely doing with this desire to develop detachment and also continue doing things which are not connected to Krishna, then it is like that hole in the pot. You're trying to do some devotional practices, but then it's also that pot is leaking, and you're also spending so much energy in other things. So yes, so now, of course, as there's still some desire, let's say you give the example of watching a movie. Well, it should not become a habit that every day you're spending 2 3 hours watching a movie. Now, but you are also not able to give up the desire completely. So yes, you watched it once in a while, and then that feeling should come, you know what, I still have attachment for these things, and I've still wasted about 2 3 hours of my important time in watching something that had nothing to do with Krishna. So so it's slow and gradually you come to that point. But again, as I keep saying, one has to make a conscious effort. Because otherwise, if we keep doing things that we're doing and don't give it up consciously, then nothing will change, right? And the truth is, again, if one is honestly applying oneself to Krishna consciousness, that taste will come automatically. Then slowly, sooner or later, you will not have that much desire to, do things which are not related to bhakti.
Okay, but so the movies and things like that, I understand these are like you said, 2 or 3 hours maybe, or sometimes Netflix you can watch 2 or 3 shows, also maybe 2 or 3 hours. But what about like small things like YouTube, for example? I have YouTube on my television, and I try to only watch like science things or classes, Harikata. But
Yeah,
like
so
I had
that's
to,
fine. So Harikatha is fine.
but I had to
You're
take
watching
off
something
the.
science related, and many times that's very helpful for preaching. Not a
Hmm.
problem. Sometimes when those who are working, they need to keep themselves updated from, they need to keep themselves updated about what's going on. Let's say if you're working in the world of technology, you need to keep yourself updated. Not an issue, right?
Hmm.
But at the same time, see, every place one has to be careful not to become addicted to these things. So again, social media, very addictive, right?
Hmm.
People who are in TikTok, they may say, "Oh, I'm just watching some reels. I'm just watching something on YouTube." Similarly, reels. And what happens? In no time, they become very addictive because all of these things are designed in a way that you will, just keep scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. Now, you can be watching some spiritual reels, that's fine. But from my personal experience, I can say, because these are short, they actually start affecting in some way. But better to listen to Harikatha, like, Gurudev's lecture, Prabhupada's lecture, senior devotees' lecture. Sit and quietly hear for an hour. That's much more relishable and meaningful than just watching, like, 1 minute clips. But again, no harm if you are watching something technology related, if it is meaningful. And you have to balance between, where you are, and everything is based on what level you are at today, right?
But like that's what I was specifically asking about is the shorts. Like I took YouTube off the phone. I have YouTube Music, but I took the YouTube off the phone because sometimes I'm waking up and I'm getting myself together, enthusiastically chanting, and then I feel like I negate all of it by watching, 20 or 30 minutes of 70-second videos. And I don't remember anything that I'm watching, and then it's like, why am I chanting or doing so much?
Exactly. See, you're answering your own question. That feeling is coming in you, right? Why am I watching all of this, right?
Yes.
So, you know, like Gurudev will give the example when a car is moving at a speed, you put brakes, it takes a little while for it to come to a stop, right? So these tendencies that we have, they don't go away so quickly, but you are already breaking it. So now these ideas, this thought is coming that why am I doing this? Right? Why am I doing this? Why am I watching this for no reason? What is it giving me? So see that thing itself is very good. The fact that realization is coming that why am I wasting even this 20, 30 minutes in something, and that whole that so much happiness that I was feeling after chanting and now associating with this all this mundane energy, it is kind of impacting me. I'll give you an example. Gurudev every day will read the newspaper, but how much time he would spend? Not more than 5, 10 minutes. Every day, those days, physical newspapers would come. So many times he was staying at our home, even when he was at the mutt. So newspaper would come. He will spend 5, 10 minutes, but not more than that. Neither spend time discussing all those points, but just because we are living in the world, just to be, know what's happening. It's also important, no, because we are not living in caves, right? We're living in this world preaching. We need to know. So all of that is perfectly fine. Whatever is required again for your work, what is required for, many times, as I said before, you can be watching these things because, watching this is helpful for preaching. You can understand what's currently happening in the world or in this area of science and use that for preaching. But just watching for no reason, that I think we should try and be careful because that doesn't serve any purpose, right?
So now, yeah, now watching out of habit, like uh, watching before going to sleep after chanting, or waking up in the morning and chanting, and then I have to go do something, go to work. There's no point to watch. It's wasting time.
There is wasting time. Yep, that's certainly a waste of time.
Okay, thank you. I'm
Okay.
satisfied. Thank you very much.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji,
Yes,
Dandavats.
Dandavat Prabhuji.
So, one common thing I have seen, especially preaching to our Indian community, first of all, many Jivatmas in Indian bodies, at least in America, they don't have too much of interest. They're busy with serving the material energy. But even those who have got some inclination, like to study the Vedas, well, they are so much infected with impersonal philosophy of Adi Shankaracharya, and and their hearts are quite hard. As Sukadeva Goswami said, if by chanting once the holy name of Krishna, tears do not come to one's eyes, that heart is steel framed. So, what I'm saying is, my experience is that preaching to them is the most difficult. They are the most difficult audience, more than even fallen people in the Western world. So, what is our technique to preach to such conditioned souls in Indian bodies?
Good question. So again, someone who does not have faith. So one offense against the holy name is to preach to those, to explain the glories of those who do not have faith in the holy name. So there are people who are, and that's why many of our acharyas are focused more on younger. people when they were preaching. So if you see in time of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, Sri Swami Maharaj Prabhupada, when he came to America as well, a lot of people that they preached to were younger, because at that time they're more receptive. Once people are older and they have all their life they have listened to all kind of bogus philosophies, they're so set in their ideas that they are not going to change easily. So one should not, because you also have to be careful, right? We also have limited energy, and where are you going to spend it? So the best way is to try and help them get some sukriti. Sukriti means giving them some prasadam, maybe give them a simple book, invite them to the temple for some reason, and where they may listen to Harikatha, at least see the deities. So with this Sukriti, slowly, either this life or next life, they will become eligible to start understanding the principles of Krishna consciousness. Because otherwise, because they don't have enough Sukriti and because of following all these bogus philosophies, they have become so, as you said, very dry-hearted and very set in their ideas. They may not easily change. That does not mean they cannot change. We have many devotees who at a later stage in their life accepted Krishna consciousness, and that's also depends on the potency of the preacher, right? So if you are not potent enough, if you don't have spiritual strength, you cannot change anyone's heart, because bhaktya sanjatya bhakti. Bhakti only comes from bhakti. So, we have seen also in the example of our Guru Varg, our own Gurudev, right? From children all the way to elderly people, he was able to convert everyone. Why? Because he himself is such a great Uttam Mahabhagavat. So, therefore, one should always know what level I am at. If you are not a strong devotee and if you are not dedicated, if you don't have the potency, that potency only and only comes from Guru Seva, nothing else. So, unless one is dedicated and applying oneself to the mission of Sri Guru, by simply going having arguments with others, you are wasting your time and not going to get anything out of it. But if one is potent, yes, you can change hearts of people. Mahaprabhu, of course, he's Mahaprabhu, but he also showed by his example, he was able to change Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was in his 60s and a great Vedantist of his time. But it's Mahaprabhu, meaning he has the potency. So without the potency, you can't change. Not even a younger or an elderly person. And even more difficult with someone who is so set in their ideas and, philosophical misconceptions. Okay?
Okay. So Shankaracharya really did his job very well. He has deluded millions of people, correct?
No, but he did Shankaracharya. No, he's Adi Shankaracharya. He's great Acharya to be respected. He did what he was asked to do. He's only following the orders of the Lord and doing what he was asked to do, right? And I think if you remember, we read this in Jaiva Dharam, and how Premhans Das Babaji explained to Sannyasi Mahashaya, who became Vaishnav Das. He explained to him how to properly understand Adi Shankaracharya. And remember, the moment he took the name of Adi Shankaracharya, Params Das Babaji, offered prostrated obeisances. So what he did was what he was supposed to do, what he was asked to do. And people want to become deluded because they want to get deluded. People want to become cheated because they want to get cheated. Right?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's why he wrote Bhaja Govindam song.
He himself was a great devotee. How can someone with such beautiful Bhaj Govindam composition, you cannot write without being a devotee of Krishna? And he clearly says in Gita Mahatmyam, there's one Lord and that is Devaki Putra, and there's only one mantra which is his holy name. Right? That's the sign of a pure devotee. But his teachings have been misunderstood and misinterpreted. And that's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur very clearly explains that in in Jaiva Dharam that what he preached was Brahmavad. Its misinterpretation today is Mayavad. And he explains that in Jaiva Dharam. Okay, so I think we're almost at the end of the class. So thank you everyone for joining, and we'll meet next Sunday and we'll conclude this chapter. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari
Hari
Bol.
Hari Hari
Gurudev
Bol.
ki Jai.